Alright, lock in because today I'm going to be giving my thoughts and recap of Australian Survivor Brains vs. Brawn II Week 2. But before I get in here, I've just got to say, I've made it clear with my previous content and last week's video that I don't like US Survivor. So despite US Survivor airing right now, no videos will be made on it. I'm probably not going to make a full dedicated video on this topic, so I'm just throwing this in here. US Survivor is like the NBA 2K of reality competition shows. They're going to keep on cranking out the same copy and paste garbage every single season and will never change because they get a serviceable amount of views. I was originally a US Survivor type of guy before I found Australian Survivor. Like, it was a big part of my life. I loved the show back then and I want the show to be great now. That's why I won't be supporting US Survivor until they change, and from this point on, I won't be mentioning anything about the show. Give them attention, give them notoriety, like me bringing them up right now, then they're never going to change. So that show is going to be like a Voldemort type of figure on my channel. So in a time like this, while I'm boycotting, I'm really thankful to still have some Survivor to watch. Australian Survivor, which is just better. Really, Australian Survivor should call itself Survivor, and the US version should be called American Survivor because Australian Survivor snatched its chain, and right now it's just the definitive version. Something unfortunate about 48 coming out is that a lot of the Survivor channels that I watch are American based, so Australian Survivor's probably going to get treated like a sideshow, which is unfortunate because I like watching other people's content. I don't really engage, but it is very nice to have one in the background while playing games or going on walks and such. It's unfortunate that this year, AU and US are lining up at relatively similar times when in previous years, this would be like the merge time for Australian Survivor, the most exciting part of the game, but they just completed week 2. Also unfortunate that US Survivor is like the Mufasa to Australian Survivor's Sonic 3. Like, Sonic 3 was way better, but Mufasa outsold because it's Disney, it's legacy. But yeah, all of that to say, I could see Australian Survivor coverage dying down and the show getting buried a bit because it just doesn't have that backing. Like, it just doesn't have the notoriety or widespread accessibility. But that won't be the case for me. It's the main show that I'm focused on and I'm dedicated. Like, I'm not splitting my attention between anything. I love this season so far and it gets my undivided attention. I have to take this into my own hands and be that change that I want to see. And that change would be Australian Survivor rising to the top and being the premier version of the game and getting more coverage, getting more prioritized and widespread coverage. So with that being said, I'm going to play my part, play my role in that to the best of my abilities. And yeah, it's time to get in here. Week 2 was a crazy week. Time to unpack it all. Getting into episode 4, I thought that the season could potentially lose some comedy without Kent, but Rich picked it up. It was funny how when AJ told him about the Coven wanting him out, he went on this dramatic monologue about Logan having an ego and how she couldn't control him, the leader of the VBs, and there was this like dramatic montage of the VBs falling apart. It's funny because they both have egos, and that wasn't even the reason why Logan wanted him out. She wanted Rich out because it was tough living with him. It's just funny how Rich is so off in his own world and sort of disconnected from what's happening around him. This betrayal got him to form an elite bomb squad, an all-guy alliance, which is going to be a big storyline, a funny storyline for this week. Getting over to the reward challenge, I've been vocal about how much I like Kate and Morgan, so it was upsetting to see them lose at the end when it seemed like they were really solid and were going to come through clutch for their tribe. Speaking of Kate and Morgan, last week at the first vote, there was some confusion about why Kate and Morgan flipped and voted out Candy when it was a 5-4-3 vote. They could have gone their own way, but they seemingly voted themselves into the minority because the 4 and 3, the 7 were all anti-Nash, anti-Ursula votes. Like, those votes were cut from the same cloth. But by the end of it all, since Candy got eliminated and Zen got medevaced, hypothetically, it was 5-5 and kind of like a reset playing field, I would say. So while that situation at the first tribal council still didn't get cleared up and probably won't until exit press, I can say that Kate and Morgan managed to sneak their way over into the majority somehow and completely abandon Nash. All of a sudden, they're on that Noonan, Paulie, Ben and Jesse's side, I guess, if you say so. And all of a sudden, PD is on that Nash, Kristen, and Ursula side, I guess. The fact that there was like no explanation for any of this makes me question their winning chances a bit. I've got to say, literally had to try and piece together what happened through exit press. By now, I have a good feeling for who the real contenders are, and I think it's kind of obvious based on who's getting content, who's not, like who's getting to explain themselves, stuff like that. But yeah, after losing the immunity challenge, which by the way was a fun challenge, soccer type challenge, nice seeing Miles get his moment as the star kicker, but after Braun lost the challenge, all eyes were on Nash because of the idol shenanigans from episode 1, and in this episode, he decided to take a page out of Kent's book, or he took a page out of his own book by telling people things that they didn't need to know, by telling his alliance, Ursula, PD, and Kristen, that he threw the first immunity challenge. Why? What is the benefit? When this information got out and got around camp, it was a pretty clear Nash elimination, with him scrambling and trying everything he could, trying to get in good with Jesse, trying to find idols, trying to get Morgan out because apparently she and Kate have the other side wrapped around their fingers somehow, even though it seems like they're just numbers and Noonan was running things. But I guess on the island, it's not that obvious, or Nash is just out of touch with the dynamics of the tribe, I guess. It was so funny how they were dunking on Nash, like when he tried to convince Paulie and Noonan that he had a good social game, and Paulie said he loves how much he believes in himself. Paulie is bringing some very good comedy this season. There was a bit of intrigue when Nash found something, a potential idol, but he didn't want to show it to anyone, which made me think that it was the advantage that Raymond got in the previous season, Titans vs. Rebels. For a short rundown of what it was, basically, if you get all the votes onto yourself, then all of the votes get nullified and your vote is the only one that counts. But if there's even one vote that's not on you, then the advantage doesn't matter. Back to Brains versus Brawn II, I thought that it was that advantage because, yeah, that's different than an idol. Makes sense why Nash wouldn't want to broadcast it to the tribe like last time. Got to keep that a secret. Like, that's the easiest vote split ever. And at Tribal, he said put all the votes on him. Or I thought that Nash stole Paulie's idol because Paulie came running to Nash when Nash found something. The prospect of Nash having an idol stirred up some chaos, but by the end of it all, Nash got eliminated because he didn't actually have an idol. It turns out what Nash quote unquote found was his paperwork from his original idol, which was revealed in his farewell confessional, and he was just trying to bluff it. Good editing choice to keep that a secret for what was a very straightforward Nash vote. I think that it was a solid idea to try and bluff that he found an idol, but that was just never going to work. It was wildly different from what he did when he got his first idol, which probably made his act unbelievable to everyone. I think Nash might have been on his way out anyways, but he probably could have mustered up a small chance at staying if he didn't reveal that he threw the first challenge, which he got flamed for at this tribal council. He's on a tribe with an Olympic athlete and a coach. Also, because of that challenge throw, he put Ursula at risk, so that was just never going to go well with all of these hyper competitive people on his tribe. No one likes losing, and his explanation of wanting to test his alliance or something along those lines, it just wasn't going to vibe with everyone because he was safe and he put everyone else at risk. The one thing, however, that I can give Nash is that there's an element of Nash possibly getting screwed over by the Zen medevac, because in Zen's before and after, like exit interview type of thing on 10 play, he said that he was going to be working with Nash and they were going to be making some catastrophic moves. If the dynamics stay the same for this episode and it's just adding Zen in, then that's still a 6-5 minority. But with Zen there's always a possibility for the game to play out differently. And from what I heard Nash say in an exit interview, Zen was like this connector or something along those lines. And it was shown that everyone liked him, so I believe that. It's something that I'll take into account when it comes time for player rankings, but Nash is still a bottom tier player for sure. But yeah, Nash leaves here, and it's unfortunate to lose two big characters back to back, like Nash and Kent were the main characters of week 1. Finding the idol 5 minutes into the game was hyped up so much in the promos, and now that's just gone. But I appreciate what he brought to the show, and now I'm looking at someone like Ursula, like this is really good for her. She got grouped in with Nash so early. Morgan even dunked on her in this episode, calling her a Nash puppet, which was so funny. But yeah, hopefully this gives Ursula a chance to find her way in the game. Not necessarily one of my favorites, but maybe she can be because she's free from the Nash rash and the game can finally open up for her. But yeah, that was episode 4, and just like episode 1 last week, this episode is going to be just about the end for the Brawn tribe for this week. They get 1 episode of content for the week, then devolve into side characters, recurring characters for the next 2 episodes. And it worked out better that way because episodes 5 and 6 are kind of like a package. Getting into episode 5 right off the bat, I have to say that I like the episode 5 and episode 6 package, but I'm not the biggest fan of episode 5 as a standalone episode. It's not a bad overall episode. Actually, it had some funny moments, most notably seeing Allie get dunked on. It was funny how Allie thought that she was so soft and warm and went over to comfort AJ because he was on the bottom, but she just ended up sort of bragging about her position in the game and justifying why AJ's on the bottom. She also went on a reward with the Brawn tribe and spilled the tribe dynamics, which she told the Coven about, and that made them question her. Allie was the catalyst for some fun chaos in this episode. Keeping it on the good, I like that AJ found an idol to combat this Coven alliance that's really been getting propped up in the edit and just seems like they have no opposition. He's really being set up as this underdog that's going to take down the Coven, which is much needed to have those opposing sides. And speaking of the Coven, I like how there was finally some substantial conflict within the Coven with Karin, Zara, and Allie wanting Rich out, and Laura and Logan wanting to save Rich and get AJ out, which forced Zara to look for smart strategic players like AJ and Miles to secure votes. I like how there was all of this chaos going around. Maybe Rich's bomb squad, this all guys alliance, takes out a member from the dominant Coven alliance. Maybe Miles and AJ turn on the bomb squad for their new sort of partnership with Zara and Karin. Maybe the Coven flips and takes out Allie for spilling the tribe layout. Maybe Laura flips on the Coven to save Rich. A lot of possibilities going into this tribal council just for it to be a non-elimination tribe swap where they sent Rich to the Brawn tribe. I just didn't like this at all. It felt like the Coven was falling apart, or at the very least, a big decision was going to have to be made here, but they got saved. My main concern was when Laura, in her voting confessional, said something along the lines of, "Go to the Brawn tribe and make connections," and meanwhile, he's out of the Coven's hair. This was like the best case scenario for Laura. Like, she keeps Rich in the game and the Coven stays together, when this vote right here was supposed to draw a line in the sand. I don't like it, and I feel like this twist took away from a game-defining vote, which is what I have to say about this singular episode on its own. It's a really nice episode, but the ending sours it some. But I have to say, episode 6 makes up for it, for sure. I'm going to recap it, then give my thoughts at the end because there's just a lot of important stuff that I just want to document. I thought that the non-elims set up the Coven perfectly to just stay together, but to my surprise, the cracks that formed in the previous episode carried over and the Coven disbanded. Karin and Zara tried to get in with Miles and AJ because they were aligned in wanting Max out, and Logan and Laura tried to work with Kaylin and Max, and later Allie to get AJ out. I like this setup because basically with how the votes played out, it left Kaylin as this big swing vote, but the drama didn't stop there. Allie overheard Miles saying that he wanted Max out, which made Max want to switch the plan from AJ to Miles. Also, at the challenge, Rich not so subtly handed Max the advantage and said bomb squad, which most people saw. So there was a decent amount of factors impacting the vote. That Logan, Laura, Max, and Allie side seemed less aligned because Max got a short-sighted idea to target Miles, and they tried to compromise by going for Zara. That Karin, Zara, AJ, and Miles side wanted Allie out because she ruined some of the Coven's plans. Also, the advantage that Rich gave Max was basically a safety without power advantage for two people that had to be used at this tribal council. That's how long it was good for. So with how tight the numbers were, that literally could decide the vote. There was just so many plans going on and dynamics at play, like it was crazy. So they got to tribal council and Max decided to send Karen and Laura out, one of his own numbers, and he tried to strong arm people into voting for Miles, but he was outvoted 4-3 by the remaining Graduates Alliance. Miles, Kaylin, AJ, and Zara voted out Allie and saved Miles, and they somewhat solidified their alliance in this crazy vote. And this all happened because Miles won the Kaylin sweepstakes. They had a nice relationship. I like that the vote was Allie. She provided some good comedy after Nash and Kent got eliminated. They basically decided to dunk on her all week and show her being somewhat delusional, which was fun. She was a really fun character this week that might potentially have an outside chance at being the worst player on the season. I wouldn't rank her there, like at least she made it through some tribal councils, but wow. Absolutely horrendous week for her. But yeah, with that being said, I like that it was her that left because the Coven still gets disbanded, but the show set up Laura and Logan and Karen and Zara to be the main pair. So the main Coven members are still in the game and have to deal with the fallout of what just happened at this vote where they drew a line in the sand. I've got to say, while I wasn't necessarily following along with everything and had to watch this episode like 3 separate times to get a feel for what was going on, I've got to say, I like it. It's dynamic, it's self-interested gameplay, and I'll take this messy scramble any day over these straightforward gendered divides. I never got behind the Coven Alliance because with the way they went about it, it felt like the game never actually started. On day one, they just decided that the women were going to work together, and that was that. And they didn't really try their hardest to make connections outside of the Coven from what was being shown on the TV edit. But like what was talked about in this episode, the most important part of an alliance is that they're aligned, to which they weren't aligned. The Rich vote revealed conflicting interests. So with the Coven breaking up, it feels like the game has finally started and the Coven members can finally find their true place in the game now instead of just staying in one alliance. So I like it. This played out perfectly. Everyone played self-interested and aligned with people that had similar interests. Also, I can't forget about the Max factor, adding a lot of chaos to this episode. He blindsided his alliance with his picks and sent one of his numbers out when he probably wins the day with better picks, like if he sent Karen and Zara out. He overplayed with the Miles plan, but he probably could have potentially got his way if he wasn't so wishy-washy with the advantage and throwing out all these fake plans until it was finally time. Whereas if he told his alliance the real plan, he probably wouldn't have ended up with egg on his face. And it's funny because Allie thought that this was the work of the Bomb Squad, and when they see Rich again, he's probably going to think that it was the work of the Bomb Squad when this wasn't even what Max wanted, and the dynamics are completely different now. Even before they see Rich, what's Laura going to think of this? Is she going to think that Max flipped on the alliance? So there's many possibilities, so much chaos that can unfold, so I'm interested to see what happens. But the question is, will this chaotic vote really impact anything? Because the next episode is advertised to be a tribe swap, so it seems like it was just a 1-episode tribe swap for Rich until the real actual tribe swap. I don't want this drama to get scrapped because based on the tribe configurations, none of this could matter or all of it could matter. But at the very least, Brawn is going to be in the show more, which is nice. Potentially, I gotta say potentially because I don't even know what could happen, but this opens up the door for them to be in the show more. I've been giving some Brawn members somewhat of a pass for not getting content because they weren't really going to tribal council like that. But if they don't get content now, then they're probably not really winning. It's a really good opportunity next week for someone other than Paulie and Noonan on the Brawn tribe to emerge into winner contention. I don't really make numbered power rankings while a season is airing because that's a lot. But I will say that the players that I feel like have the most win potential are just Paulie and Noonan for Brawn. Like, I can't really say otherwise until they set someone else up. Like, they're the only ones getting substantial content over there. Then for Brains, I'll say that Karen, Miles, and Kaylin had good weeks in that Graduates Alliance. and Laura went down because she tanked her Coven alliance trying to protect Rich. Then she lost Allie, one of her allies, and is in the minority before going into this tribe swap. Most of the same stuff can be said for Logan as well. That's what it looks like right now, but I'm not committing to this hardcore because it's only week 2, and I also think of someone like Liz winning Heroes versus Villains. She had a relatively small edit, especially when compared to the massive screen hogging of George and Simon, but she ended up winning, so anything can happen with Australian Survivor edit, so I'm just interested to see what happens and if more players will emerge next week because it'll make the game more interesting. But yeah, this was a very chaotic week. It didn't have anything explosive like hat burning and finding an idol 5 minutes into the game, but the whole Bomb Squad and Coven saga and watching that get disbanded and seeing Allie's week-long downfall was really fun and equal to the events of last week. Also, there was some miscellaneous stuff that I didn't find a way to work in naturally, like Jesse's Zen rap probably being better than Zen's original rap. Then there was the sausage sizzle saga where the Brain Tribe took the sausages for reward. Then at the next reward, when the Brawn Tribe was trying to figure out who from the Brain Tribe they're going to bring with them, Morgan didn't want to bring Logan when she was crying because Logan didn't give them the snacks. Then there was this sumo at sea round between Karen and Ursula that lasted 20 minutes, in which Karen used that time to tell Ursula not to trust Rich. But yeah, that was a good fight. Like, they had to call it a draw. Then there were the innuendos, like Paulie telling Nash to flop it out and let's see what we're playing with. And at the challenge, JLP said give it a good yank to release that nutsack. It's not the first time in Australian Survivor that he said something like that. Like, he's just having fun, not taking this stuff too seriously. And I love it. Such a fun week, such a great weekend. I'm just hoping for the best tribe swap configurations that lead to some dynamic gameplay, some content for the quieter characters, and just the most chaos possible is what I want. But yeah, that is all for now. Stay strong, stay brutal, because above all else, it's anything to win.
I won't let you down, Bruce. I'll keep fighting. Always.